We are just about a month away from the start of football, and perhaps we saved the best for last. Today we're going to have the NFC West. We're going to go through their off seasons and predict a record for the upcoming NFL year. As always, drop your predictions in the comments section. Let's get into it. Now, the great teams always know how to retool, and that's exactly what the Rams did this offseason. Out goes Cooper Kupp, in comes Davante Adams, and by the way, Poona Ford, one of the most underrated signings of the offseason, helps out this defensive front. When I look at this Rams roster from top to bottom, head coach and all, they're a very complete group. There's not many better. And this is a team that on defense, they're young, they're fun, and they're only going to get better. On offense, they're veteran-led. They have a top 10 quarterback, in my opinion, and a top 3 coach in the game. Again, a very complete group, but can they put it together? They have a very easy schedule, and I'm going to say that. As a veteran group, they need to take advantage of that. And to me, I think there's no sugarcoating about it. They are contenders not only in this division, but to win the whole damn conference. And that's because of their style of play. That's because of their veteranship. And this is a team that, this is the biggest question for me. Can you either win, a majority of your divisional games, or can you win some of these key in-conference games? If you can do that and win the games you're supposed to, you can win the conference or at least be the number 1 seed heading into the playoffs. It's not crazy to say that, especially how complete they are. But let's get into their schedule. This is a team that I do think starts hot. And hey, they have a favorable schedule to start the year. Houston opened up the season. Houston has a lot of questions on offense with all the injuries. The Rams will pick up a win there. Then they take on Tennessee in week 2, Philadelphia in week 3. It's really the big one. Going into Philadelphia, a place that you lost in the playoffs last year in the snow, a bit of a classic game. But the Rams are the only team in the playoffs last year that showed that the Eagles were beatable, that they were human to a degree. And honestly, I think on the road, same environment, I think you got something to prove here. So you get that big-time win. You carry that momentum to beating a lot of teams where your first loss in the first half of the year comes in Baltimore against who I think a team in Baltimore that will have the best record all regular season long. So going into the bye week, you're 6-1, you're feeling great, and then after that, you beat New Orleans. I mean, that's kind of a layup, right? Now after that, you go into San Francisco, tough divisional environment. You're going to lose that one. Then you pick up three straight wins against Seattle, Tampa, and Carolina. So not only are you winning the majority of your divisional games, you're getting some of these key in-conference games against Philly and Tampa Bay, like I mentioned just a few moments ago. So now you're sitting here with 2 months left in the season. You're 10-2, and you're maybe in a better spot than any to win the dang on conference. But now I think you run into a bit of a hurdle. Every team has this in the season, whether if it's a 1-game losing streak or a multiple game losing streak. Every team has a soft spot in the season where they're either going to bounce back from or they're going to die as a team. This is a team in the Rams that I think loses in Arizona. Then you have Detroit, tough environment. Matthew Stafford can't figure them out. And then you go into Seattle week 16 and you lose that one as well. So now you're sitting there all of a sudden 10-5 going into the last 2 weeks. You thought you had the number 1 seed, but you still got a chance at it. I think you win the last 2 weeks, and based on a tiebreaker, I'm not going to spoil it, but you're in the conversation. Now, this might sound crazy, but I think in 5 years, when we look back at the 2025 NFL Draft, we might say the Arizona Cardinals won the thing. Not because of depth, but because of the potential superstar talent that I believe they drafted. Walter Nolan, my favorite player in the class, helps out this defensive front. And then they also got Will Johnson, a guy that was looked at to be a lock to be a top 5 pick until the injury concerns started to happen. But lo and behold, he's healthy. He's ready to go in training camp. And both of these guys, well, ironically, Walter Nolan is dealing with an injury, but both of these guys will be ready for week number 1, and they should have a big impact from day number 1. Outside of that, this is a big year for both of the head coach and quarterback of this organization. John Gannon, you took over a rough situation. You've kind of turned it in the right direction, but now it's kind of a make or break year. What can you do with this momentum that we brought and that we gained at the end of last season? Same thing with Kyler Murray. You got a big old contract. I love you, but it's time to live up to that contract. We haven't been to the playoffs in years. We need to get back to that point, right? Again, if this roster stalls out and they go another 7-10 level season, don't be shocked if some of these names are on the market going into the 2026 NFL season. Regardless, This is the key for this Arizona Cardinals roster. Can you maximize the talent you have? Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride. Can you get the most out of these guys and get them the damn ball in the end zone? And when we're talking about Trey McBride. But can you do that consistently? Because I think that the Cardinals have one of the top 5 easiest schedules in the league this season. So with the talent that you've brought in, also Josh Sweat and Calais Campbell, this defense should be miles better. The offense has the talent to be miles better and a top 10 level offense. But can you do it consistently, and can you win some of these tough divisional matchups? If you can do some of these things, let's just say they split their division, I think this team with their easier schedule can make the playoffs. But it doesn't happen if Kyler Murray doesn't play as a Pro Bowl, top 12 level quarterback in the league. If he doesn't do that, I think we might be looking into a new chapter of Arizona Cardinal football. But if he can, I love this team to make the playoffs. Now, that was a bit of a foreshadow there, but let's talk about their schedule, and you'll see what I'm talking about as far as the winnable schedule that they have in front of them. I think they start the year 3-0, the big-time win coming in Week 3 on the road against a divisional San Francisco 49ers. After that, of course, you go on a bit of a rough stretch here to close out the first half of the season with 4 of 5 losses in the last 5 weeks of that stretch. I gave you the win against Tennessee. Now, heading out of the bye week, you start in Seattle, a team you've already lost to this year at home, and I think you get a big-time win. Now, after that, it's kind of a win-loss, kind of a stretch for the Cardinals. You can never really find that momentum. But all of a sudden, Week 17 in Cincinnati against another Heisman-level quarterback in Joe Burrow, but you're heading into the last 2 weeks of the season where you need these wins to not only make the playoffs, but, I mean, again, just give yourself a shot. I think on this stretch of the season, you beat Cincinnati, but then you lose to the Rams. The Rams at that point are still going to have all their starters playing. They're still going to be fighting for the #1 seed in the NFC side of things, and the Cardinals, at 9-8, as crazy as it may sound, they're still alive for the playoffs. Again, I don't want to spoil it. Perhaps no team lost as much as the San Francisco 49ers this offseason, as you see on your screen. But on the plus side, before we get to the negatives, you did bring back a familiar face, a successful face in Robert Saleh to rerun this defense. A guy that when he was last year, hey, you had a defensive front that got you to 2 Super Bowls. Again, you just ran into Patrick Mahomes in both of those. But Robert Saleh has already made a big effort into rebuilding this defensive front, which again has brought success for the Niners in the past. Drafting Mykel Williams, bringing in Alfred Collins, 2 SEC boys that are so powerfully strong that they should make an impact from day #1. Now, we'll start with the defense in Robert Saleh's projects. Outside of losing guys like Charvarius Ward, Dre Greenlaw, Hufanga on the back end, this defense is projected to have 8 or more new starters compared to last year. And a lot of those guys are going to be rookies. So he's got a big project in front of him. Now on offense, this is a team that really has a lot of questions with their health, and you can start in the wide receiver room. Brandon Ayuk, again, had a breakout year, got a big contract, but then he got hurt. So he's coming off a big-time injury, and we're going to have to see if he can bounce back from that. You have guys like Juwan Jennings holding out for a contract. You have Ricky Pearsall, who's been dealing with hamstring injuries all off-season, and that's never good for wide receivers. It never bodes well as far as their health in season. Outside of that, you lost Deebo Samuel, so the wide receiver room alone has a lot of questions. On top of that, you have guys like Christian McCaffrey, who is never healthy, because when he is, well, you always make the playoffs, but that's the problem. It's really the biggest if in football as of today. So you have a quarterback that you like, and I think he's coming off of his best year, despite not making the Super Bowl, but can you trust him enough to elevate whoever's on the field with him enough to win football game after football game after football game? I love Brock Purdy. I think he's an above-average quarterback, but that's a big task that only really elite quarterbacks can do. So Brock Purdy has a big year in front of him, but I think the saving grace in all of this mess is you have a top 5 coach in the game in Kyle Shanahan. So with these roster concerns, I think they start off, well, relatively slow. Getting wins against Seattle and New Orleans to open up the year, but then you lose that one against Arizona, And that one kind of, I guess, shuffles things in the clubhouse because after that, you lose a lot of road games in LA, in Tampa Bay, in Houston, against the Giants as a huge upset win. But that defensive front should dominate this Niners offensive line. So that's kind of why I gave the Giants that one. So at the midseason mark, you're 4-5, and you need a big stretch here heading into week 14, which is your bye week. Again, I'm not a big fan of late bye weeks, but I think you turn it around. You get 4 straight big time wins, and 2 of those coming against divisional matchups. The Rams, Arizona, Carolina, and Cleveland heading into your week 14 bye at 8-5. So you're in a good spot to not only win the division, but to make the playoffs, which is ultimately the goal. Now, after that, coming out of the bye week, I think you split these games. I think you could beat Tennessee, beat Indianapolis in Indy, but then week 17 and 18, again, it's hard to beat a divisional rival twice. I gave Seattle that one at week 18, but then Chicago, man, if you can win that one and be 11-6, you can be in a position week 18 to win the division. But ultimately, I think Chicago will win that one. I know a lot of people are on the fence about Chicago. I believe in Ben Johnson and company, especially with that offensive line. However, 10-7, you're in a great spot to make the playoffs if you are the San Francisco 49ers. And finally, we have the Seattle Seahawks, and we have officially entered the Mike Macdonald era as we are out with the old and in with the new. You lost guys like Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett, guys that have been staples in this organization for half a decade, if not longer. But you brought in a lot. You brought in a lot of young talent through the draft like Grace Zabel, Nick Eamon-Worry. Those are the guys that highlight the list. Also Ricky White as well. I'm excited to see what he can do. Cooper Kupp was also brought in free agency. A bit of a shocking move there. But what headlined the entire offseason was bringing in a $100 million man at the quarterback position in Sam Darnold. The question now with Sam is, can he replicate the magic, or at least to some degree, that he did last year in Minnesota? I think Seattle as a roster, top to bottom, has one of the biggest ranges in the league. Because based on health, I think if they're fully healthy, they can make the playoffs. But if not, they can also be a 7-win football team like they have in years prior. It's really one of the biggest ranges, and I struggled more so than any, to rank this team and predict their schedule. Now, I may be naive in what I'm about to say, but I don't believe Sam Darnold is a top-end quarterback. Of course, you want to see him replicate the magic. You want to see him continue to progress because I hope the best for every single player. However, I don't think he's an above-average quarterback, and that's what it's going to take to get this Seattle roster to the playoffs in a loaded division. Now, again, I may be naive in this as well. I think there's actually a better chance that this quarterback room plays out like the early 2010s group with Matt Flynn and Russell Wilson than Sam Darnold just being this star quarterback that's a staple in this franchise for years to come. Of course, if you remember back to that 2010s group, you had Matt Flynn coming off a year where he showed flashes at the end of that season in Green Bay. Had a crazy 6-touchdown game. And then Seattle threw a lot of money at him. And he came in, and Seattle quickly realized why Matt Flynn was a backup for so long. And of course, in that same offseason, they drafted his replacement in Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson turned out to, again, be maybe the greatest draft pick in this franchise's history. This offseason now, of course, they signed a quarterback that showed flashes, had his best year of his career in Sam Darnold, but they also drafted Jalen Milroe. I don't think that Jalen Milroe is a fraction of the quarterback that Russell Wilson was and ultimately ended up being. But at the end of the day, I do think there's a good chance that Jalen Milroe might start a couple weeks this season. But again, I might be crazy for that train of thought. Hopefully Sam Darnold progresses and proves me wrong in that regard. But just like every team in this division, I think this is a team that is a little bit up and down to start the year. As you see, they get some the much-needed wins against New Orleans, Arizona, and at home against Tampa Bay. Washington's a big one there in Week 9 in Washington. I think you can get that one. But ultimately, you're 4-4 at the midseason mark. You haven't really found a momentum yet, but this is a team where in the second half, it's do or die. Can you answer the call like Arizona and San Fran and the Rams have done? I don't really think so. I think this is the point in the season where we kind of realize, hey, Sam Darnold, he's okay, but he's far from great. You lose to Arizona, lose in LA to the Rams, and then Cam Ward gets a big-time win at home against this Seattle defense. Now, that one could go in Seattle's favor as well, but I'm gonna save you. I'll say this at the very end. It's not really gonna matter as far as their playoff chances. You beat Minnesota to get back in the win column, but then you lose in Atlanta against the Indianapolis Colts. You're 5-9 at this point. Best case, if you want to give them the Tennessee game, 6-8. At this point, you don't have a chance to make the playoffs. So I think this is where Jalen Milroe takes over. I think he can get a win against the Rams, and then in Week 18 against the Niners, can get a win there. But hey, if you have Sam Darnold in there, maybe you go 8-9 or 9-8. Regardless, based on tiebreakers, Seattle doesn't make the playoffs if you even give them 2 or 3 of these wins. But regardless, 7-10 year, disappointing for sure. But I think you now have clarity on your current quarterback situation, and you can now look at some of these guys on the market like Dak Prescott or who you may want to go after this offseason. And I think you're going to readdress that again in 2025. But here is the tale of the tape. The Rams at 12-5, Niners at 10-7, Cardinals 9-8, just one spot out of the playoffs. And the Seahawks, again, you can have them at 7-10 or 9-8. I don't think they make the playoffs regardless. This is the NFC West, and that closes off our 8-week series where we go through every single division, break them down, and predict a record. So if you missed your team, of course, it's on the channel. All of the thumbnails look the exact same. Now, I will say, with the last month or so until the NFL season, we're going to have official record predictions where I fine-tune all of these and give you an official playoff prediction. Outside of that, we have our award predictions. We have some fun Super Bowl videos coming up here in the weeks to come. So as always, if you enjoy, support us down below. On the road to 18,000 subscribers, which is crazy. But again, until next week, stay happy, stay healthy, and let me know what you think in the comments.